Okay, I'm going to go ahead and cut my pattern pieces out. Okay, so I'm about to cut out the front pattern piece. Now, we have one piece for the bodice, both front and back, and they have to be folded different ways in order to cut the front versus the back. So we're gonna do the front piece first. When you're doing the front piece, you can see right here, I have necklines that are high and a neckline that's low. So the high neckline is for the back pattern piece. The low neckline is for the front pattern piece. So I have a note here that says fold along the lower neckline to cut, and it's supposed to say cut front piece. So I have to fix that. But in order to do that, what you want to do is just snip. And I'm doing a large. The large piece is the solid black line. So I'm just going to snip all the way over to that line so that I'll be able to fold my pattern back. And I'm just making enough so that I'll be able to fold it back neatly. And I think that should be good. So I did my snips. So now I'm just going to fold it back along that black line. So it's going to look like this. You also are going to want to fold back this line here. This is the seam allowance for the back pieces, but since the front is going to be cut on the fold, we do not need that seam allowance. So that's going to be folded back as well. And this is how the pattern needs to look when you're cutting out the front pattern piece. So once you have it pinned down, this is what it's going to look like. We have that seam allowance from the center folded back so that we can cut the pattern on the fold. And we also have the high neckline area pinned back so that we are able to cut out our low neckline. And I'm about to cut this out, and then I will make my adjustments to cut the back pattern piece after that. Now we're going to be cutting out the back pattern piece. So we're going to take the same piece we used to cut the front bodice pattern piece, and you're going to fold this center line back out. And the neckline that you folded down to cut the front piece, you're going to fold that back out. And then there is a triangular area down here that you're going to want to fold up as well. And then you're just going to lay your pattern piece on the fabric, pin it, and cut it. So this is what it looks like when you are getting ready to cut out the back pattern piece. We have this bottom line folded up so that we have a little triangular area that is not going to be included. And then everything is folded out. The center seam allowance is folded out, as well as the high neckline, because we want the back to have a higher neckline than the front. I'm now about to cut out the sleeve. I have my fabric folded over twice. So there are actually 4 layers of fabric, and then once I cut out on the fold, I'm gonna have 2 symmetrical sleeves. I now have my 2 front leg pieces pinned together along the crotch only, so from crotch up to the waist. I have it pinned, and I'm gonna sew this together using a zigzag stitch and a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Next thing I'm gonna do is lay my pants in front of me. These are the front pants pieces that have been sewn together. I have it laid out in front of me like so. And I'm going to take the top front bodice piece, lay it on top of the front pants, and pin it together. And then I'm going to sew it together using, of course, 1/2 inch seam allowance and a zigzag stitch. I'm now going to be connecting the back top pieces to the back pants pieces. So you see how I have them lined up. I'm just going to flip the top pieces over and pin them to the bottom pieces right sides together, and then I'm going to sew them together with a 1/2 inch seam allowance and a zigzag stitch. So now I'm about to connect the top back pieces to the back pants pieces. You can see I have both of them pinned and ready to go, and I'm just going to sew these together, and then I'll be able to move on to the next step. Next thing I'm doing is I've taken my front bodice piece, which has the top piece and the front pants connected, and then I have, you can see I have my back bodice pieces laying on top, right sides together. So here's the top piece, and that's the back pants piece, top piece, and I'm connecting them at the shoulders only because we are preparing to put the sleeves on. So I'm going to sew the shoulders only together, and then I'm going to be adding the sleeves after that. So I did sew the shoulders together, and I'm just going to trim the excess fabric off. I am going to do a serger tutorial soon at some point. So If you are familiar with how to use a serger, instead of going through and doing all the trimming and stuff, you could just serge your raw ends so that they'll be neat. For pants and stuff, I try to make sure I sew and not only serge, because I have had I have done like a pair of pants where I only serged, and then in the crotch area where there's a lot of tension, it came apart. So if you're doing something in an area that has a lot of high tension, you want to do the sewing machine and the serger just to be safe. Anyways, now that I have my shoulders together, I'm going to turn my in progress garment sideways. Like so. Okay, so I have my garment turned sideways. The next thing I'm going to do is take one of my sleeves. And here's the sleeve cap. You're going to turn it right sides together. And you're going to start pinning the sleeve to the armhole. I have a little extra space right here, which is probably a cutting error, because all of the sleeve caps are the same length as the corresponding armhole. So if you appear to have, you know, excess fabric or whatever, you want to just go back through, kind of stretch a little bit until it matches up better. If you can avoid it, you don't want to like cut any extra off, because you don't want to end up with too tight of a sleeve. And there we go. Better. So now I'm gonna go ahead and sew this, but this is what it will look like once you have everything pinned. And of course you're going to do the same thing on the other side. attached one sleeve. And here's the front of the jumpsuit. Here's the back of the jumpsuit. And here's the sleeve right here. So now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, and then we're going to be sewing our side seams together. I would have done this step before I pinned the shoulder pieces, but I forgot. But basically, you want to lay your back pieces right sides together and pin them all the way from the crotch up to the waist and up to the neckline. And this is just to connect our back pieces as one piece. If you were putting in a zipper, you could do that here before you sew these seams together. But I'm not doing a zipper because my neck hole is big enough for me to just step into. Now I have the garment inside out, and what I'm going to be doing is pinning it together from the end of the sleeve where the wrist is all the way up the sleeve to the armpit, and then down all the way down the garment all the way to the ankle. And I'm going to do this for both sides, and then we'll have to sew the inner legs together, and then after that we'll be hemming everything, and we'll just have to add our waistband, and then we'll be done. Now I have both outside seams of the jumpsuit sewn together. So now I'm going to go ahead and pin together the inside leg seams. And then the only thing I have left to do is hem and add a waistband. So you just want to start where the crotch is and just start pinning from crotch all the way down to ankle. Now I'm going to sew this together all the way from ankle to crotch and back to ankle. So it's now all sewn together, and I'm gonna turn it right side out and just try it on real quick. Make sure I don't need to make any changes. Then I'm going to hem it, and I'm gonna add the waistband. Kylie. I tried on my jumpsuit. It looks amazing. So now I've turned it back inside out, and I have folded the edge of the neckline over twice and pinned it, and doing the same with the sleeves, and I'm also going to do the same with the ankles. I'm going to go ahead and hem everything, and then I will be making my waistband. Here's the waistband piece. I'm just going to cut it out on the fold along this edge. What you want to do is fold your waistband over the long way and pin it all the way along the long edge and sew it together. Then we're going to flip it inside out. I'm now going to take my scissors and just trim my excess fabric off because I don't want my fold to be bulky. now we're going to turn the waistband right side out. What I have here is a loop turner. You can get this at Joann and probably Walmart, probably Amazon too. You're just going to take it and stick it into the end of the quote-unquote tube that you've created, and then once you bring it through on the other side, you're going to want to hook it around the edge of the fabric, and then just use the seam to pull it through to the other side. Once it comes out, I usually just unhook it and pull it the rest of the way manually. So now the waistband has been turned right side out. So next thing you're gonna do, take your waistband and meet the edges like this so that the seams are at the very edge, and then use pins to pin it together. And then we're going to sew together using 1/2 inch seam allowance and a zigzag stitch. I'm going to just sew this down. This is a lot of layers of fabric, so I'm going to turn my tension up so make sure my machine will go through it. Tension is too thick, too high, because now it's not wanting to move. I'm having problems. Okay, I'm gonna start over because it's tangling up real bad. Okay, so I have sewn the ends of the waistband together, and now I'm just going to fold over this remaining seam allowance and pin it down, and I'm going to sew it down with a straight stitch just so it's not like moving around and peeking out from under the edge of the waistband. Okay, so now I have that secure. And here's what the other side looks like. And when I put this on, I'll just make sure that the seam is either like in the back of the, either in the back of the jumpsuit or, you know, on the side or something.